Hello and welcome to the Comedian's Paradise. This is where we talk to mavericks of the clown and stand-up comedy world. Now, today's guest has the name of, have you seen like the guy that was the alpha in high school? He has the first name of like the Chad. His name is Chad. His surname is like very rhythmic, like a poem. It's Damiani. Damiani.
Ah, yeah.
It sounds beautiful. It sounds like a guy that's a wordsmith, like a guy that could write a world-class, like romantic poem for like lovebirds across the world. Like forget Shakespeare. Chad Damiani is the new wordsmith. But
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's
Chad
great. We'll
Damiani,
see.
he is a man that has if you've seen WWE, if you've seen The Rock, he started in wrestling. Got involved in screenwriting, but now he has got involved in the mad, the brilliant clown world, where he works with the fantastic Zach Zucker at Stamptown, which is named in French after the city which they study clowning in, Étampes. Étampes, sorry. I don't know the Spiegel word. He also did clowning in the park when people needed some comedy to deal with the pandemic. There is nothing that Chad can do, hence his first name, Chad. Please welcome Chad Damiani.
Thank you so much, Marv. That's a very, very nice. And it's funny. I always think of my name as being such a contrast because it's such a like Anglo-white first name and such an Italian last name. But I prefer that it promises a wordsmith, promises a merchant of poetry. I think I'm going to start telling people that on my own.
Oh, good. As soon as you do the stand-up and clown show, say, welcome to the stage, Chad Damiani.
Yeah, there's more. I should embrace its lyricism.
Are you a mix? This is going to sound, are you mixed race like me? I'm English and Irish and Chinese.
No, I'm 100% Italian.
Oh, okay.
My parents just wanted us to have white names because they were the children of immigrants and they thought our lives would be easier. And their parents had done the same. So their parents were coal miners in a place called Scranton, Pennsylvania. And so, while they had named their other children stuff like Salvador and Rose and more traditional Italian names, my dad was Charlie, and then my mom's name was Diane, so it was Charles and Diane, like the royal couple. And then they named my brother and I Chuck and Chad, so they were just like, let's just get these kids in with the right people over here. We don't want to be associated with the miners.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think what's it called? There was something with the tennis player, Jimmy Connors or something. His original name was O'Connor, but they wanted to sound less.
It's just so crazy to even think that would be a concern now with what's happening. But yeah, that's the idea that O'Connor might turn people off from tennis is very funny.
But yeah, I don't know. It is what it is, eh? But I know that what's it called? I know that Italian American pizza is amazing. I'm a fan of the artichoke in New York. That is the best pizza I've ever had. I'm sorry, Chad.
No, it's no apologies. I mean, I'm technically Italian American. I'm second generation. So, yeah, our pizza's very good. Our chicken Parmesan sandwiches. we're Italian Americans. We're known for that. We get a lot of stuff right. I guess that's because we tend to be more obnoxious if you're following cultural stereotypes. So the food has to be good.
Yeah. And I don't follow the stereotype of being Asian, being good at maths, being studious, and being a good boy. But no, it is. I think that's a great thing about the West, isn't it? That it's filled with it's got a melting pot of different people from all sorts of backgrounds blending in.
Yeah, there's a good number of us over here who like that part, and then unfortunately, there's a good number of people over here who seem to have a problem with it right now. So but everyone in my little bubble of clown and art and living in California, I mean, very much there's so much to learn from other people and how sort of they were taught to perceive the world and how they celebrate and how they mourn. Um, and the clown community in LA, thankfully, at this point, is also a place where we are really curious. Um, I don't know if that was always true. I think it tended to be kind of white dominated for a very long time. No different than improv, no different than stand up. But at this juncture, it's so exciting to walk in and just see people who all have this commonality of something that they like to practice and perform, but also bringing such uniqueness and distinction to it. I mean, that's probably one of my favorite parts.
Hmm. It, from what I've seen of entertainment as a whole and the stand-up and all of that, it's still mostly it's mostly white still, but it's
Yeah.
just it's getting there. I think in maybe 10 years' time it'll be more mixed. But I think yeah.
It's still mostly white, mostly men. But I will say that what's interesting about like social media and where we exist right now are a lot of people have been able to find underserved markets by speaking directly to their experience. So, I came up with people like Morgan Jay, who's South American, and Atsuko, who right now is one of the biggest stand-up stars in the world. And I was doing afternoon shows with her just before the pandemic that had like 4 people in the audience. And now to see like that someone who is different is getting spotlighted, and that's why people are coming. It's like it's not something to overcome. It's something that gives you value. It's really exciting.
Okay. And you've had, as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, you've had quite a diverse experience of like performing, and you originally started in wrestling, right? And I know that wrestling has quite a interesting background. I know that Muhammad Ali, when he was boxing, originally was all right, but he watched a bit of wrestling, how they trash talked, and wanted to bring it into boxing. And I think you mentioned it. Maybe I'm wrong in saying this, but maybe I read something or I saw something. But you mentioned something that there are elements of elements of wrestling that's similar to clown. Is that right?
Oh, to me, and there will be a lot of people who disagree, pro wrestling is the most successful presentation of a clown adjacent work in the history of entertainment. Because
Oh,
yeah, no, I think pro wrestling very much. Also, you should know that I am not a traditionalist. I'm a modern clown from LA. A lot of what we do is about absorbing different styles and techniques, being completely open to any methodology, any tactic that gets us what we want, which is ultimately just a connection with the audience. So for me, like, tradition often exists to hold art hostage, and it gives power to the people who practiced it the longest because they say, well, this is how it's done. And the reality is, in clown, how it is done is a reflection of where the world is at in that specific moment, right? So for me, like, anyone who sort of has this very like finite definition of a work where we're supposed to break the rules and we're supposed to figure out different ways to solve problems, that's just we disagree. And if you take a look at wrestling, just on its face, if you just wash away whatever you find displeasing about it, and there's a lot of things that if someone doesn't like it, I completely understand. But there's no fourth wall, performed in the round, physical storytelling. The audience's reactions are the primary goal, right? The story being told on this little square of canvas is being treated as much more than it is, right? It's two people in their pajamas pretend fighting, ultimately. But they can get an arena of 50,000 people screaming at the top of their lungs, cheering, booing, having this huge emotional experience. They get the people in the audience to love the performers, to love to hate the performers. With clown, for me, ultimately, when we get to the end of a show, the equation of success is does this audience love me? Does this audience want me to come back after I leave? Like, have I made this deep impression on them? Because we know the content doesn't matter because we purposely pursue the stupidest ideas we can think of. So we know we don't think that it's the cleverness that is the draw. And in wrestling, it's very much the wrestler, the clown. How much of themselves can they show the audience so the audience really buys into who they are and wants them around? So yeah, I think, we have so much to learn from pro wrestling. And that's the good thing about learning, Marv, is you just throw away the stuff you don't want. You just toss it away. Housekeeping is probably going to knock on my door in just a second. I should let them make an entrance because I think we maybe get them in the shot.
Get them in, get them the smile.
But yeah, like I think we can take anything. I always say this to my students: anything that engenders an interesting response, and not just laughter. Anything that makes us scream or cry or laugh. If it's done outside of the purview of cruelty or exclusion, it's worth unpacking for a performer. Like, we should want to know why that happens and how they get that reaction, because it's valuable to us. It's another tool that we might have. And I think wrestling has, it has huge following, obviously globally, but there's a lot of people who have a great disdain for it. But you'd be crazy not to ask yourself how they pull this off, how they're doing theater for massive arenas with almost no tech, no props, limited costumes, in the round, in a square. Like, how are they pulling this off? Like, you're saying you can't find something useful in that in your own work. It's a limiting way to think.
What would be examples of where you would say are examples of wrestling being like clown? Like, I know a lot of people will know of like The Rock or Stone Cold Steve Austin. What would you say are examples of big name wrestlers or famous things in wrestling that demonstrate clowning?
Right off the bat, if you've studied clown even one class, what has your focus been? Entrances and exits, right? I mean, wrestling draws so much value from how the performers enter the space. The music, the videos, the costumes. They come up with movements and gestures for the audience to immediately play along, right?
Yeah.
Like, The Rock comes out and, The Rock does his thing. And can you smell what The Rock is cooking? And he has call and response phrases. Stone Cold Steve Austin, the second they hear the glass shatter, the whole place goes crazy. I mean, for a clown, the idea that a sound drop could get that kind of reaction and immediately put an audience in this space of exhilaration, that's super interesting to me. I think they're very good wrestling at playing high status and low status. I think they're masters of creating villains that the audience actually wants to spend time with, which is super valuable in clown as it is in commedia. The idea that we can come out and be sort of a vile character, but the audience actually loves that we're there. And the audience loves that they get to exercise their disapproval of us. Because a lot of times in clown, sometimes I think we feel paralyzed that we have to always play just like the generous fool and but wrestling shows us, and this is something I use in my work a lot, that you can come out with great confidence and be villainous and be a little like sinister, and that this is also exciting for an audience if you're willing to lose. I think it's important that you lose. But yeah, even that part about how status can shift just in the blink of an eye and how exciting that is for an audience. That's what a match is, a good match. You're seeing this like energy shift back and forth, and the audience feeling like they are contributing to the narrative through being vocal and supporting the underdogs and stuff like that. I mean, that's all stuff we're doing.
Yeah. What would you say? Who would you say is a wrestler that resembles clown the most?
Oh, there's a bunch. I also feel like sometimes I see wrestlers who are very good at clown that aren't necessarily the funniest ones. I just think they're the best at getting the reaction that they want.
Oh, okay.
And I think sometimes that, look, I just actually was recording one of my own podcasts earlier this week, and this constant sort of debate about all that matters is that it's funny. And I'm always like, well, all that matters is that they love me and want me to stay. So I'll do whatever gets that requirement met, right? Like if I can stay, they're going to laugh eventually. They're going to like, if they want me here, they're in a state of joy. But wrestlers who are particularly funny right now, there's someone in a promotion called AEW named Orange Cassidy. And AEW is the second biggest promotion currently in the world, all elite wrestling. And he has a character who is a slacker, and he kind of comes out with his hands in his pockets, and he wears sunglasses, and he has all these really funny bits he does in the ring. Like he has these little, like, I don't give it. Can I curse on this, Marv? Or are
Yeah.
we,
Say whatever you need.
sort of like I don't give a shit kind of attitude, and he'll just do these very gentle kicks to to his opponent, but the audience will react as if they're really stiff kicks. So he's just kind of kicking him, and sometimes he'll wrestle a whole segment of the match with his hands in his pockets, like he doesn't care, but he's doing like kip ups and drop kicks and stuff like that. So he has a whole comedy arsenal that he employs, but also is a tremendous wrestler. And then as the match goes on, commits more and more to actually wrestling. So then he also exhibits the skill side of clown, so he's sort of vacillating between both. Right now, in that same promotion, there's someone called Timeless Tony Storm, who plays sort of a mid 19th century starlet and has like some of the funniest promos you've ever heard, and like makes all these sex puns and just constantly generating comedy, but also the audience loves her to death and takes her seriously as a performer, which I think is that balance of when we talk about clowns. If you're going to go out there for 2 minutes, you could just be a wreck, be a mess, dance with catastrophe. If you're going to go out there for an hour, that audience has to also believe you are extremely capable. Like they won't trust you enough to spend that much time with you if they think that you are completely hapless. They'll be like, oh, well, we're being held hostage by this clown. They don't even know how to move forward. So we're always kind of living in that paradox of we want to seem foolish and naive and innocent, but the audience on some level has to be like, I'm in good hands. I'm in good hands. I can trust if this show feels like it's falling apart, that this clown is capable of saving this show. So like, this is going to be like, I'm nervous. I might even at times lose a little faith, but ultimately I believe that, that I can relax and enjoy myself because this clown knows what they're doing.
What if they're like Tommy Cooper? How do people when he did all those magic tricks and was failing there?
I would argue, yeah, I love that bit, by the way. And it's like, but I mean, when you watch it, at first you kind of sucked in this way. I feel like you've never seen him before. You're sucked in this way where you're kind of rooting and nervous for them. But I think why it works is because on some level, as we're having fun, we're having a lot of fun. I think this person knows what they're doing. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think it happens instantly. I think that's an example of someone who's masterful at appealing to different emotions in us that allow us to stay engaged and not pull back, right? Like, we're pulled in because we're like, oh God, like, almost like a kid. It's like we see a kid like walking like on the roof, right? We're like, oh no, this is so like they have our rapt attention, right? But at some point we're like, oh, this kid knows what they're doing. Here's another example from the world of circus is Frodo, Frodo Santini. He's a circus performer. I think right now he's doing tours with Mad Apple in Vegas, but he's been around the world, and he's double jointed. He's one of my favorite performers, and he has a number of acts. The one that I love the most is he essentially puts his body through two tennis rackets that have been and like the one's very small, and he's able to get his whole body through, and he'll come out and immediately fall off the stage,
Ah,
and it doesn't look like some safe pratfall. It looks like he's about to break his neck, and you spend the first minute and a half of this act being like, oh my god, this guy's gonna hurt. Like, what's going, like, you're laughing, and it seems so silly, and then he manages to get through one racket, and you're like, wait a minute, like, what's going on here,
yeah.
right? Like, it's like, and then you start, like, he's playing both sides of it, where he enjoys our concern, but he never lets us panic. Like, he never lets it turn into a negative emotion. And then ultimately we realize this is a master. This is someone who's actually operating on a higher level than us in terms of what their expertise is.
Okay.
And that's like for a clown, that is, I think, the ultimate satisfaction, is that we do have these moments where it just feels like this show cannot be saved. But then ultimately we realize that we've been i- with this person who knows exactly how to sort of give us the best show possible.
Hmm. And yeah, my experience of clown is quite limited. I mean, the only main experience I have of it is I did Mick Barnfather's course. I
Mhm.
did Gaulier for about a year and a bit. I did it till 2019, and they had the pandemic, and then um, I came back and finished it in 2022. And I only did the year program.
I mean, I'd say a year of Gaulier is not nothing. That's like that's quite a bit of clowning every day.
Ah, well, it's just yeah, it is bloody quite a lot. The thing that kills me about these courses is the intensity of it all. Like,
Mhm.
even when you're like in a full-time job or something, you have time away, or like even if you're like staying in a flat or whatever with people, you're not with them all the time. But I feel that I mean, it's good for me. I didn't like the intensity of Gaulier or Matteo Destro. I like to have my space, and I think a lot of people do, but for me, especially, bloody hell.
I I I have a lot of people I work with, Zach Zucker being one of them, one of my best friends. Vigo Venn, people who've spent a lot of time doing conservatory style training, who I think are some of the best clowns in the world. Me personally, I feel like I feel like that system is set up in a way where there's a very narrow lane for success for a very certain type of clown.
Yeah,
Um, and I feel like there's a lot of reasons for that. One, like you said, this idea of sort of being in the boiling pot for so long. I think I think there's a certain type of, like, resilient clown, like a fearless, resilient clown that, like, is so desperate and focused that this is sort of a place they live and they thrive. But a lot of my favorite clowns are not that. They're on the spectrum. They're shy. They're introverts who, like, their moments on stage, they light up because it's this one time they give themselves permission to truly be seen. And I just don't think conservatory serves those type of performers. Um, Also, there's a popularity element to conservatory. You're all huddled together. Um, you just end up liking certain people more than other people. And then you're the audience for them when they're on stage, and vice versa. So I've had a lot of people come back from Gaulier, and they've had this great experience. I would never take that away from them. But when they get up in front of an audience that isn't invested in them the way their classmates are, they eat a bag of shit up there. You know what I mean? Like, they come out, their state is lovely, they have a great costume, and then the audience excuse me. And then the audience stops laughing because they're like, "Okay, let's go." And they've kind of now been programmed that if they walk out and they just kind of do this very simple thing, they have this room full of people who love them, and they just keep laughing the way we laugh at, like, our family members and, like, people we know, like, our best friends for 20 years. can do things that are so small that a whole room of people wouldn't notice it, but we would laugh. We're like, oh, that's classic Marv. That's like,
Yeah.
like, and so they'll come out and like they get that initial reaction, and then they're just waiting for more unconditional positivity. And it's like, no, we've got to work, and strangers owe us nothing. And most audiences, especially at a clown show, they want us to succeed for sure. They want the show to go well, but they're not going to push us past the finish line just because. Like they owe us nothing. And so I think you can go to conservatory and you can get a lot from it, but real clowns are born on stages in front of strangers.
Yeah.
And that's just the only way. You have to get out there and you have to learn how to connect with people who know nothing about you, who owe you nothing, and who've maybe potentially paid a bunch of money to see you and have high expectations of delivery. Like that's where we find ourselves. So all your feelings, I guess, I think more clowns go to conservatory and feel the way you did than go to conservatory and ultimately feel like this unlocked me and now I know what I'm doing.
I will say one thing that was quite good about it, and with the Gaulier experience as a whole, they're good at like they're very good at figuring out people, the people that go there, and they play a lot of games with the people there. So with myself as a whole, I'm a bit of a people pleaser, and sometimes I'd be a bit of a yes man and all of that. And they were playing games that helped me realize that, and they're basically trying to tell me that stop being a people pleaser. And the lesson they taught me in the school was only something that I've realized maybe 3 or 4 years down the line from the course. And I've only learned that through doing jiu-jitsu and other things that, yeah, you're not going to, that it's better to be authentic yourself and have people not like you than being inauthentic and have tons of people like you. You got to do what works for you.
Right. Yeah. But also, it's that interesting thing, like, so you're a people pleaser, like inherently a people pleaser.
I would admit that, yes.
Like, yes, it's like you have to learn to recognize that part of yourself, but also we want to see you fail at pleasing us. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like we want a different version of Marv. We want a version where you don't hide because that's what you think will please us, right? Like that's what we want, right? You don't hide yourself because you construct a second self that you think we'll like more. But sometimes we do like to see a clown try their old tricks and lean on their bad habits, and then in front of us recognize that they are like taking the wrong tactics and kind of reveal themselves at that point. Like that is also very valuable in strategy. In some ways, you have to be careful specifically not to go into teacher mode, because by recognizing that you're a people pleaser and that you need to be your real self, there's also going to be that little part of your brain that tries to figure out the best real self you can be to please us. Do you know, like, like, do you know what I mean? Like we kind of we can go in a circle, and it's better to be seen warts and all the time. Like for me, one of my things that I recognized in my journey is I love to be the expert. I love to be in charge. I think if I was a football player, I'd be the one who always felt they should get the ball. I'm like, I'm the one, let's go. And I'm not right. I mean, I think I'm capable and I'm good at things, but I'm the kind of person that would take a yoga class and then as I'm walking to my car would think, how long would it take me to be the instructor? Like after the first class, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, how would I, cause I'm like, oh, that's who I want to be, that person. I have to show an audience my desire to be correct and like that I want their respect and adulation so they can take it from me. Right? Like I can't simply become a person who isn't that. That's not who I am on a fundamental molecular level. So I get a lot of laughs coming out and trying to convince them I am that person. And then when things fall apart, letting them see that I'm just like that little boy who is just dreaming of being the teacher. You like that is part of the beauty of it. And again, I'm not telling anyone not to go to conservatory. I think look at it for what it is. It's like if you have the money and the means and can spend 2 weeks, 3 months, a year immersed in just being in your body and making entrances and exits and getting on stage, of course that's valuable. But your real training is going to begin when you leave and you start to step onto strange stages. Like there's the success rate for conservatory is probably under 1%.
Well, you say that. Whoa.
I mean, in terms of like people who come out and actually, you have to remember a place like Echo Gaulier, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of students.
Yeah.
And if you look at like, the Vigos, the Sacha Baron Cohens, the Zach Zuckers, the Phil Bergers, like we can name almost all of them. But we're talking about a pool of thousands of people, right? Like, and that's not to say that it doesn't work. It's to say that there's this other part that no education can capture.
Yeah.
Which is the clown ultimately has to have that desire to continue and put themselves in situations. And you can't teach that. You can't teach anyone that. So yes, go have this great experience. I often refer to it as clown summer camp. It's like, go be joyful, make forever friends, pick up some great tricks, be inspired, but then get ready to get to work because that's not work.
There is what's the thing? Yeah, the podcast that I listened to you with Barnaby King is brilliant. Like, but what Barnaby King is doing for like clowns and all of that really opened the eyes is brilliant. And before I listened to a few episodes of the podcast, I thought that all the main clowns just came from Gaulier. But looking at his podcast and like it's a very big world. Like, I've interviewed maybe about 20 odd clowns in it. You got clowns that are doing street clown in France. You got Gardy Hooter, who definitely did Gaulier, but she's like a worldwide clown that's popular in Austria. She's done shows in China and all of that, and she just mumbles something and then just dresses in a costume. You got Patch Adams, there's John Townsend, there's who else is there? David Shiner, who I want to get the podcast, and then there's that big, really famous clown festival, the Zagreb Clown Festival.
Also, just in LA, you have Natalie Palamides, who I'd argue is the best modern clown, and it kills me to say, she's my good friend, but it kills me to say it. But like in terms of solo shows and performance of the modern era, like doing the most interesting work, you've got Courtney Peroso, who just had her special on Dropout TV. Clowns can be born anywhere and can find their way if they're willing to get in front of enough audiences. And I do think that, and by the way, I benefit from this, I should say. I just, there's a show in the States right now that is hugely popular called Heated Rivalry.
Oh.
And it's this show about two hockey players who fall in love. And it's just caught fire. And the two main stars of this show are now mega stars, right? Like on every red carpet, they have millions of followers, overnight success stories. One of those performers was Connor Story, who was one of my students. If you teach long enough and you become this sort of lighthouse that you're teaching this sort of art form, people are just going to pass through, right? Like, hopefully we help them. I mean, what a place like Echo Gaulier has to its advantage was, for a long time, it was like, well, that's where you go. So anyone who wanted to pursue the work finds their way through there. But that doesn't mean Echo Gaulier made them into the clowns that they are. They just went to the place that they thought they could learn. I'm not saying it hurt them, and maybe they did gain a bunch of stuff from it, but it gets muddy, right? It's like, oh, well, this is the place all clowns go. I'm the funniest person in my town. I guess I'll go to that place. Now, I know clowns that, like you said, even to yourself, that they'll say like, oh, it took me 3 years to realize what I gained from that. Maybe, or maybe in those 3 years you did the work and, and found this thing out.
Yeah.
And we love to sort of attach value to things. Look, I do the same thing. When I look back at my time in wrestling, I definitely feel like it gave me a perspective that made me unique in clown. and also a ton of time because I was an announcer. I wasn't a wrestler. I don't know if your viewers think I was a wrestler. I could do it aesthetically. I'm built like a wrestler. Just for everyone, I know this is some of you are listening on audio, but I'm a jacked middle-aged man. That's my clown for sure. I have to let people know that. But what I would do as an announcer is no matter what nonsense was happening in the ring, no matter how stupid it was, no matter if it was clumsy, being done by people just learning how to wrestle, like, in their development, I would treat it like it was the most brilliant thing I ever saw. That was my job. My job was to fall in love with everything that happened in front of me and treat it like it was Shakespeare. And that's an incredibly valuable tool for a clown, to sort of like give meaning to the meaningless, to take nonsense and treat it like it's profound. And I got to do that for thousands and thousands of hours. And there was a point over a decade later when I was doing clown where I did have a moment where I was like, aha, I've done this before. I know how to do this. I have to reconfigure it to do it with what I'm doing now, because like I'm not sitting there talking. It's like, but I know how to completely commit to things that are seemingly pure nonsense. And that I feel like is still one of my superpowers.
So by connect to nonsense, what do you mean by that? If you don't mind me asking.
I'll give you an example based in the show I run. So I have a podcast called Stand Up and Clown, and that is based on a show called Stand Up and Clown, where I take comics, mostly stand-ups, but it has like spread out now. Influencers, actors, musicians, anyone who I think is interesting. And I will start the show by talking about the great lineage of clown and how I'm going to force these performers for the first time in their lives to earn a genuine laugh, to push past their discomfort, give us more of themselves than they realized they had, and finally create real theater on the stage that will connect us all and make us really believe in the power of this medium. Like very high-minded stuff. And then they go out there and they're flopping around and they're making every mistake possible. And I'm getting angry because, like, how dare they? This is like what I'm trying to create, things that are beautiful and undeniable. And so that's what's funny about it. My ability to elevate it and maybe even convince a couple people in the audience that like what I'm saying is true, and then have it be what it is, right? That contrast. And so wrestling gave me a lot of those tools. Wrestling gave me the power to imbue those things with possibility, only to have them be something else. And that's what's funny about it.
But I'm also guessing wrestling gives you confidence because if anyone fucks with you, you would double leg them and then choke them up.
I remember when I was working in wrestling. So when I was in wrestling, I think I was in 3, I wouldn't say fights, I'd say skirmishes. They were all in bars because those guys would not take any shit, right? And to be clear to anyone listening, my objective in a skirmish is to find the door. They're big, they can handle it. And, or at the very least, like the thing you do is you try to push everyone together because then they can't throw punches. Like the more that you can get everyone like compressed in a bar fight, the better off you are. Space is what creates danger. But one time there was a guy backstage who was a really great wrestler, Dean Malenko, but also he was known as being what's called a shooter, which is a guy who could really wrestle and fight and take care of himself. And I said, Dean, just in case another one of these skirmishes happens, what can I do? Like, how can I, like, what are like some good tools? And I remember he smirked, like, and I didn't know why at the time. And he goes, oh, I'll show you. And then he just proceeded to put me in like 3 of the most painful holds that I'd ever felt in my life. And I was like, okay, I think I get this one. But he was just messing with me. You know what I mean? Like he put me in a front chancellery. He twisted my arm, and I'm just like, ah! Like, so it was all, he was like, oh, you want to see how to make hurt people? I'll show you. You'll like, and so, yeah. And then I walked away. I'm like, wait a minute. You know, like I was like, you could have just illustrate. You didn't have to actually like cause me that much pain. You know, it's like, it's just, that's the kind of mentality you sort of encounter backstage at a wrestling show.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I wouldn't want to mess with a wrestler. I mean, bloody hell.
No. Although one wrestler told me a story once. His name was this guy, Chris Canyon. Rest in peace. He did pass away. But I guess one time he got into a bar fight and he was throwing punches at a guy. And the guy's just looking at him like, what are you doing? And he realized that he was throwing worked punches. Like he was throwing punches like he was in a wrestling match. Just reflexively, because that's how he's not getting in real fights every night. He's getting in fake fights. So he's just like not hurting the guy at all, but swinging as hard as he can. And the guy's like, wait, should these hurt? And he goes, oh, right. I've got to like actually connect with these punches. Like I'm in danger. But
I have found, and this is my controversial opinion, but and this is there's not everyone is nice in these circles or all that, but I find that the nicest people I've ever met, and this is not in all cases, but as a whole, the nicest people I've met have been in like boxing gyms or MMA gyms or in Brazilian jiu-jitsu gyms. I don't know why, but that's my personal experience. That the nicest people I've met have been in those type of circles.
I think that a lot of times, like those people understand the necessity of being gentle and like that they can hurt people. I think unfortunately, and I'll only speak for the States, like sort of there is like a kind of right-wing movement towards Brazilian jiu-jitsu and combat sports that didn't always exist. So there's also like this like section of people who sort of want to train in that stuff for the wrong reasons. But when I was growing up, it was always said that you trained in martial arts so you never have to be in a fight, right?
Yeah.
Like that you would just have that composure. So yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
I don't know. I just found that. I mean, I started jiu-jitsu about last year, and you go in there thinking you're going to be this and that, but then you get beaten the shit out of by someone else, and then you see that happen to other people, and there's always a bigger fish. Like
Right.
you will start thinking that you know a certain you submit a few people, but then like a purple belt or a blue belt or a brown belt will come in and say, "Listen here, Sonny Jim, you still got a lot to learn," and then your ego gets dented.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think performance is a lot like that, where you just realize that some nights aren't your night. And like if you're going to be a really good performer, you can bomb and like not feel like that you have to like lash out, that you're like, yeah, there's some like, and I think the performers that I connect with the most, because also in all of these things, right, there's awful people find a way to learn everything. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Awful
yeah.
people are everywhere. But the people who I count as friends, they're endlessly generous. They're, you know what I mean? They're curious. They're in touch with what makes them laugh, and they really listen and connect because they're in the business of seeing an audience and wanting to bring joy to people, and it does it trickles down to their real life. That's not to say I have met like some of the most successful performers and thought they were assholes, right? Like of course, sometimes you'll be in a clown class and there's a woo-woo element to it and woo-woo was something we say in the States of like, there's a mystical like element of like talking about it in a spiritual way. And they'll be like, the only way you'll win this audience over is if they see the true you. And then you'll be like, actually, I know this guy and he is absolute bullshit on stage and he's killing, right? Like you're like, I actually know someone who's like maybe a sociopath. I don't know, but they're able to sell an image of themselves to an audience in a successful way. It's all possible. The point isn't that clown makes you this better person, and you won't be that on stage. Clown shows you that this is the best way to succeed because it's the best way to enjoy the experience.
Ah, yeah.
You could learn how to do it in a horseshit way and maybe have great success. But if you learn to do it the right way and learn to really like be fond of audiences and like laugh at your failures, you're just going to be happier. So do it that way.
Yeah. It's less of a load on you in here and in here.
Right. And you see how that load like degrades people, right? Like it sort of makes them bitter and angry, and like it plays into their worst qualities. Like it's like, why would you do that? Like there's another way to do it that actually like makes you a more wholehearted person and makes you happier. So do it that way.
Yeah. What's to say? Do what makes you happy.
Yeah. I mean, it's so painstakingly simple, but it works. Like it's the right thing to do.
Now, you've got such a big wide range of experiences, and I'm going to use like I use this metaphor all the time, the simile, but have you seen the film Slumdog Millionaire?
Yes. I wrote a movie years ago that was on something called The Blacklist the same year Slumdog Millionaire was on the Blacklist in 2007.
Oh, what was it called?
The film I wrote with my partner, JP Lavin, was called Kamikaze Love. It never got made, but it was actually, I think, ahead of Slumdog Millionaire. And then I saw Slumdog Millionaire, and I'm like, this is a better movie than we wrote.
Oh.
I was like, this movie is quite inspired compared to what we wrote.
Well, hopefully.
What's your analogy, though?
Oh, so the thing that I found interesting about the film is that they thought he cheated, right, when he was answering the questions. But the thing that's interesting, he was able to answer all those questions because of his life experiences. You've had quite a wild life. Like you've been a wrestling announcer, you worked in screenwriting, you've got all sorts of things going on. You got your podcast, you got your stand-up show, you work with Stamptown. I don't know how to say the name, Spiegelworld. Spiegelworld. You work with Spiegelworld. So that is a story there, because you might like that's a performer's journey. What would you say each of those experiences taught you, and how they helped? I mean, for example, Stamptown, you got to give a round of applause for Zach Zucker, because he's doing a lot for not just the clown world, but the stand-up, like touring across the world, helping a lot of acts out, and also Don't Tell as well. You got to give him a round of applause.
Oh yeah, and I don't know if you saw it, but it was just announced that we're shooting a Netflix special for Stamptown.
Amazing.
I don't believe there's ever been a comedy variety show that has done that on a streamer.
No.
Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah. And by the way, I'm in my mid 50s. Like you named half of them. I was an assistant to the artistic director at like an experimental theater in the 90s. I worked on like weird like website network projects in Atlanta near the 1996 Olympics. I worked for Ryan Seacrest for years as his comedy writer on his syndicated radio show and traveled around with him. Like you just start to amass a lot of different experiences if you're sort of I'm definitely a nomad, like I attack things and I either leave or am escorted out. Like I've just had a lot of chapters. Like I didn't go to a job and spend 30 years there. By the way, nothing wrong with that. My parents retired very comfortably doing that, and like that's something that I'm never going to get to do. But yeah, like I feel like what happened with clown for me is that it was the first time that I saw the value in all those experiences in a way that I could apply them. Like I would definitely learn lessons through my life. And part of that, not to bum out your audience, but I'm a widower, and I found clown after my partner passed. And, as tragic as that event was and devastating, it did offer me like this complete reset on my life, like, and everything that I thought I believed, right? Like you go through catastrophic grief and a lot of your belief systems, they fall away. You just, things that you thought would protect you or helped you make the right decisions, you realize had no party in what happened. And I did feel like I was able to examine and be introspective in a way that I would never have been if not for sort of kind of burning to the ground. Like I was able to rebuild myself. And in going through all those experiences, like we talked about earlier, seeing how wrestling had taught me this this radical like positivity and support, and like this idea that we can convince people something is one thing regardless of what they're seeing. Like we're just wired that way. If someone tells us, we're seeing it used in the worst ways right now in the world, where like there's videos of things happening that are atrocious, and then people in power are telling us that something else happened, and we're looking right at it and we're seeing people believe it. And there's also a power of good in that. Like, so it can be used for evil, it can be used for good. My screenwriting days, I think a lot of those lessons were to actually to the point that you talked about yourself, where I was so desperate to figure out the writer I could be to be successful, and what these executives wanted in studios, and what stories I could tell that they would like. I didn't start that way, but I had all these people around me that I was supposed to trust, managers and agents, and kind of just pushing me to sort of like, well, give them whatever they're asking for, as opposed to like, no, I have to give them me. And if they don't want me, then I will move on. But the only thing I can do authentically is give them things I believe in. And also screenwriting, there's just like, I have muscle memory for storytelling that a lot of clowns don't have. When I'm on stage, I can sort of see like a grander design to what's happening. I can take a pattern of games and then like lay over something onto it that makes it all feel like it's one thing. And I can do that like just in a half of a second. I just understand, and this is something that really serves me as a live director or a clown boss, which is like my title. I can watch people do nonsensical pieces and assign a narrative to those pieces. And I don't mean like you're a fisherman. I mean the narrative being like, you keep messing up because you want to be the star here, and this person, you're overshadowing your partner. I can give it some sort of shape that the audience goes, I know what the story is here. Like all horseshit, right? Like just laying something on top of it to give the audience the comfort of seeing like the metric for success and failure, and watching like people make game moves and understanding what the game is in a way that's a little more accessible. So yeah, like I did improv for years. I still technically do improv. I just kind of do it as a clown, but I'm really grateful that I had so many years exploring the idea of game, and like that sort of yes and philosophy of like, well, we can build something together from nothing very quickly. Like if we just like take our time. So yeah, they all caught up with each other and made me into the clown I am now. And I think the most exciting thing about having those kind of revelations is that now you get to like take all these things that you think make up who you are, and now the real work starts, right? Because like it's like, well, now I have to see just how valuable all these tools are together, how I can mix them in different ways, how I can continue to put myself in positions where I feel like I'm not the expert and that I'm trying something outside of the my comfort. And like even just now, right now in what I'm doing as a clown at like 53 years old, is I'm building a show where there are no jokes, because jokes are a tool I use a lot when I'm doing like clown stand-up or character clown. It's just all these little dumb games. And it's like, that's not a space where I'm really, I have a lot of experience. But so now let me apply all these things about myself to a new skill, and let me like continue to grow as a clown. as opposed to being like, oh, I know what works for me, and now I'll just lean on that forever.
Hmm. Yeah, that's one of the things that I like about a lot of clown performers and clown artists. I feel they push the button and try lots of wild things. And one of my biggest regrets is not seeing Natalie Palamides, because I hear so many good things from so many clowns about her. And I know she's in London. I don't know. I think her show's finished.
Walthamstow, yeah, I think she might have one left, but I'm sure it's sold out.
But yeah, I heard so many things about it. I heard that a lot of times when people make a clown show, they get a director to do this. I heard she just got a camera out and just did it all on her own.
She she did. She shot herself to sort of see what things looked like. She did have, I was one of them. She had about 5 of us work as clown consultants. But like all we did was watch the show multiple times and then pitch her things like, well, you could do this or this. Like we were like 5% of the process. It's all Natalie. Although I did I was the first person to suggest the split makeup that she uses. So she has a look where she's half the boyfriend and half the girlfriend. And when she started doing the piece at first, she was just running backstage and changing. And I really don't take too much credit for that because I feel like she would have just figured that out. But I remember watching and I'm like, what are you doing, dipshit? Because she's like a really good friend. I'm like, dipshit, just split. Just do a split and then you could. And she's like, oh my God. That's a real clown thing, right? To have someone this brilliant, that, like, just think that they were going to do changes for the whole show. She would have figured it out. Like, I think I said it about a week before. She'd have been like, what the fuck am I doing? I can just do this other thing. But because I didn't invent split makeup, certainly. But yeah, like, so she sourced clowns that she respected, and then she trusted herself. And that's also something that, you know, when we talk about tradition and clown, and like one of the things I think I'm really interested in is the idea of transdisciplinary art, that giving clowns as much permission as possible to use things that they might see in groundlings character work and stand up and storytelling and improv and like and like to take and borrow from any artist, albeit steal even. Like, just I feel like one of the things that held clown back for a long time is that sense of like that it's so defined as this thing. And this is what clown looks like, and this is how we do it, and this is how we train for it. And I always just think that can't be the best way to teach disruptors, rebels, outcasts, you know, tricksters. Like, the idea of teaching tricksters how to be tricksters in this age-old tradition of training seems because a good trickster wouldn't they immediately just buck that train? Like, they'd be trying to outsmart the training immediately. And like, how do we honor the past, and how do we take from what people who preceded us have learned, and also understand we can throw that away and do whatever we want, and our work can look whatever way we want it to, as long as this audience is having a great time and we're connected. And that's the only part I think we have to honor. Like, we don't, like you said with Natalie, we don't have to have a director. Like, we don't have to like learn like a certain type of breathing training or a certain type of movement. Like, we don't have to juggle. We don't have to. It's great if you have that stuff, but like, what actually works best for you right now, and what plays to your strengths the best, and maybe not be concerned with anything else, you know, because like, that's a clown is a rule breaker. And so like, a lot of my classes are all designed trying to teach you how to break my rules, like giving you rules that don't work and putting you on stage and seeing if you have that aha moment where you're like, actually, I think this other thing will work better. Because that's what a good clown does. A good clown is not stuck in the idea of what they're doing. They are living in the moment of that experience.
Yeah. As what's it called? I can't do Philippe Gaulier's accent, but I'm sure Zach Zucker's done it many times. But he says, "You're in the shit, and you figured out in the shit." I can't do his voice. But you also said another thing that's interesting. I had a guest in here a while ago called Simon Evans, and he's been at many of the best comedy shows in the UK. He's been Live at the Apollo, Michael McIntyre's Roadshow, and he says a lot of original things have been created by someone's influences from others. We're all influenced one way or another, and creativity comes from, as you say, taking from different things and making your own thing.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about wrestling a bunch in this pod, but like, I feel like in the LA scene, I was one of the first people to really employ what's called ring psychology.
Oh,
which is sort of this idea of like telling this, like, so the actions we see on stage speak to a grander story. Going back to earlier in this podcast, like I said, like these, people pretend fighting in their pajamas, right? And they're exchanging moves and this and that, but that's not what we care about. We care about whatever we feel like is the personal journey of each person. And, when I started doing a lot of live directing and also during my improv days, I was always more focused on what I felt like was the grander story, the story of the clowns on stage. They're just putting on a show, but in putting on a show, they reveal or like explore something personal between them. Or even if you're on stage by yourself, you want something very specific from this audience that might be different than what your character wants from the audience. Right. So me being a natural show off, a lot of times when I'm doing a piece, the piece I'm asking for one thing, but what I'm really trying to accomplish is I'm trying to get this audience to like be impressed by me, like in this way. And then sort of like that's the more important story. Like they can watch me do a bunch of moves and play a bunch of games and say a bunch of funny things. And there can be like positive reactions to all that stuff. But I need them to go deeper. Like I need them to think it means more. And to do that, there has to be a grander story being told. Any good sports movie does this, right? Like we're building to the big game and we know all the interpersonal stories. Like Ted Lasso does this. Like, yeah, they're trying to win the championship. But in winning the championship, this guy has to let go of his ego, and this person has to realize they're too old to be playing soccer anymore. And this person had, like if those things don't exist, then we're kind of living on the surface. And ring psychology allows the story to resonate more deeply.
okay. Ah, yes. And that's
give me 1 sec. I'm so sorry, and I know this will be on YouTube. I'm just going to fill this water glass. I'm just it's a little drier here than I thought. It's going to take me 3 seconds. Maybe you could share a story.
It's £10 per sip. No, I'm joking. Are you all right?
Oh no. It's so dry up here. As I was talking, I'm like, oh my god, if I lose my voice before my show tonight, talking about clown, that's the clowniest thing I could do.
No. What were we getting at? I've forgotten now, but yeah.
Deeper story. We were talking about the idea of ring psychology.
Yeah. And you're talking about there being like a story that encapsulates people and like as a meaning.
Right. And these archetypes and this like goes back to like very traditional storytelling. I mean, something like wrestling, very much David and Goliath, or they'll explore, like there'll be a match where the underpinning of that match is that they're both in love with the same female manager, right? Like, and that's the match. Like, there was a very, very famous match between Macho Man Randy Savage and Ricky Steamboat when I was a kid, and it was to sort of free Elizabeth, Randy's manager. Like, if Ricky Steamboat could win, like the underpinning was that this woman would be free of this monster. And it's like and also it happens to be one of the greatest technical matches that has ever taken place. But the reason the audience goes so crazy is because they spent all this time building backstory. And what I like to do in my work is find ways to abbreviate that process and get the audience to buy into some grand backstory. I'll give you an example. One of my most successful bits, I had a really realistic bomb vest made. It's on my Instagram. But it's so real. I had to get a second one made that I could break down completely so I could travel with it. Cause I was like, oh, I can't take this on a plane. And I come into a space and essentially within a minute establish I'm a cop. I was kidnapped. I'm wearing a bomb vest and a psychopath is talking in my ear and they're making me do things all around the city in order to save my little brother. Right. And so it's very much in the tradition of like movies like Speed and the second Die Hard movie, this sort of idea of, you're being forced to do things you don't want to do. And then I end up just telling jokes. That's what the psychopath wants. But now I've created all this greater interest in like these jokes, because now the jokes are like, will we literally blow up if the audience doesn't laugh? Now, obviously they know it's a joke, but that's the beauty of that suspension of disbelief. There's just a little part of them that still like revels in this concept that all of this is more important than it seems. And so then I can tell the dumbest jokes you can imagine. And they groan in a way like, oh, we would definitely be dead. If we had to laugh at that joke for real if this situation was real and we had to laugh at that joke, we'd be dead. So then that becomes funny, right? Like grander narratives. And that's classic wrestling. Wrestling always treats everything it does as if it's more important than it is.
Yeah. It's that's what gets people in, like with soaps as well, isn't it? It's the dramatization, the stakes,
and also over time, like getting to know those performers. And I try to, like, I'm not a clown who is invisible behind their costumes, their makeup. Like I want people interested in me and I have sort of an identity in the clown scene of being this sort of very brash, cocky, know-it-all, the best that has ever done it kind of. Like I like, it's very rare for a clown to choose higher status.
Oh.
Like I'm not saying they don't exist, but like the most of the clowns we know, right? They're like kind of silly and they're like, they're funny because they disarm us. And that's not how people kind of saw me as a person. And so I was like, oh, let me play into that. And so like I get laughs on a lot of things just because people know me outside of the show as sort of a persona, right? So like creating value in the idea that there's more to me than just the show I'm putting on. And again, I'm not saying that's for everyone. That's worked for me.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's the thing about being a performer. We all got our own idea. We all got our own journey. We all got a life story. We all got our different things. If we were all the bloody same, it'll be a very boring world.
Well, I do feel like, I don't know if this is super controversial, Marv. This might be, you can clip this for socials. But we do have to look at, if you look at like clown, you always have to be wary of bad faith actors through the history of clown. And there were times for sure that while they wanted clowns to have a certain level of uniqueness, they definitely wanted us to be obedient. Like, they wanted us to, get to the show on time. And like, if you're talking like if you're talking about like an American circus clown, 40 clowns, it's like they want them to work for a certain amount of money and they don't want them to advocate for themselves. Like, right? Like historically, if you look at it from practice of labor, like clowns have definitely, they've tried to hurt us. and I mean herd, like HERD, not hurt. I don't know if that came through. So it's important that we always like question authority, even if it's the authority that's teaching us how to do this work.
Ah, yes, yes, yes. Yeah, no, definitely. Um, well, there's a thing interesting thing you said earlier about clown breaking rules and all of that, and that's a big thing at the moment, isn't it? One thing that I've noticed with a lot of stand-up comedians, especially in the UK, because of the way it's structured, you have the competitions, you have gong shows, and you have a lot of big clubs, and a lot of TV agents go to the big clubs to go and watch comedians. So it's structured in a way that often suits a certain kind of, as you said, a certain kind of comedy. And sometimes some of the comedians that you see, they're very. Who was this? A previous guest, yeah, last week's guest, Simon Rakoff, said something that in some cases you get a lot of comedians that are very similar to each other, and in some ways they're. Oh, I'm bloody butchering what he said, but yeah, people are too similar, and there's a.
Well, there's even on a grander scale than that, this idea of the all-knowing algorithm, right? Like, so you have social media, which seems to be rewarding a certain kind of stand-up comedy, and then clubs that want a certain kind of plug-and-play stand-up. I like to think of myself as an ethical capitalist, which is, of course, an oxymoron. But anytime money's involved in anything, be gravely suspicious. And for clubs and for Netflix and for the algorithm, like, they're not out for the best art, and they're not out for our best interests.
No.
Of course they're not. They're out to make the most money off us. The more they can reduce us to content instead of artists, the better for them. The more they can make comedians look alike so they can plug and play comedians into slots and they are completely interchangeable, the better for them. The less we use tech and lights and other things to be creative and work outside the system, the better for them, right? Because it's all easier. And at the end of the day, they're more interested in how many chicken fingers they sold than if our jokes have gotten better or are pushing the limits of comedy. And, the thing is, there is a reward in that. And it's very easy for especially stand-ups, because that has been, very monetized. Like, they know how to make money on stand-up. Really, with clown, like, even with Stamptown, which is a very successful show, Zach by no means is an oligarch. Like, he's surviving. Like, he's putting on these amazing shows. He's paying all his performers, but he's not like wealthy. And, they really don't quite know what to do with us, which has protected us artistically. Because if they knew what to do with us, they'd be certainly pushing us into a more narrow box. And stand-up right now is a very tight little sort of like, this is what it is. And they love that stand-up is so inexpensive, that it's just a person on stage with a microphone. They love this stuff. And it doesn't serve the artist to not be able to think about the possibilities of what they could do or how they could interact with an audience. But it certainly serves the people who are cashing the biggest checks.
Yeah, definitely. But what you said, there's also a big problem in a lot of things, like with movies and with TV series. Like, I really love this YouTube channel, but The Critical Drinker, I absolutely love it. The stuff that he says and the things that he reviews. But a big thing is, Hollywood is it's so focused on making money. Like, look at what's been done to Star Wars. They butchered it to death. They destroyed it. Look at what they did to superhero films. That if they'd maybe not made too many and made it not too much just about the quick buck, it maybe would still be popular. But because they've mined it to the ground, like they got Love Island in the UK. That TV show is shit, but it was really popular for a while. But it's on this downward turn. They're not going to stop it on a good point. They want to milk it dry till there's not a single penny left.
Well, the show Lost.
Oh yes, that I watched a bit of it, but not all of it. Some of it's
from my understanding, the creators of that show, very much in their mind, they were like, we'll do like 3 seasons. Like, we'll have a mystery and then we'll solve a mystery. And then, of course, it was making too much money, and they end up going like 6-7 years, and all they're doing is adding more and more mysteries. Like they're like doing this formula of like, how will this all be explained, to the point where it's inexplainable. And the fact that they were unable to end that show in a satisfactory way has really tarnished its legacy. It was people's favorite show, and you really never hear people talk about it anymore, because they same with Game of Thrones. Like essentially they ran out of books, and they're like, well, we'll do one more season and we'll write it and we're going to tie everything together. And they kind of like, oh, you would have been better off just like being this frozen moment in amber, and not trying to like satisfy the people you worked for to make one big cash grab. And like we always, we talked about my screenwriting career earlier, and just that realization that the people you trust the most, while I'm not saying they're evil or malicious, that they always kind of figured you wouldn't make it. And they're like, how much money can we make off them while they're here? Like just this sort of view of artists in general as commodity, and like something to be like exhausted, and to make as much money as possible from them, and then throw them out for newer artists who cost less and don't know the game, and that you could exploit. Like every new artist that comes in is like someone walking into a used car lot, right? Like, oh, they don't know how this works, and I do this every day, and I can get them to sort of buy a car that's a lemon, or I can get them to spend too much money. Like that's how the entertainment industry works now in the US, and I imagine other places. And that's why I'm also checked out of it. Like I'm super excited to work on the Netflix special and be part of that. And that kind of happened organically, but I don't audition. I don't I don't take meetings on scripts that I don't write anymore. I only do things that I have control over and allow me to be uncompromising in terms of the work that I create. That's it. And if someone offers me something outside of that, I'm not interested. Like I said, jobs will come through. I got to do a TV show a couple years ago called Joe Schmo, and I got to write on that and be in it. And it was like a 3-4 month commitment, and the show was fine. I thought it was pretty good. But it was a return to all those people who are thinking about the big picture above you, that you don't like, that aren't, how do I say this? Oh, that they're not as funny, smart, and creative as we are. I guess I'm trying to find this nice way to say it. I'm like, oh, I don't have to be nice. But they sort of are in charge. And the show, it came out fine. It was fine. But in those 5 months, I made enough money to fund things I cared about for 2 years. Like, and to sort of travel and teach. Like, that's how I approach everything now. It's like, I'll go on a little capitalist vacation and sort of like make money and do a project. But like, I'm not looking to get like anointed as the next anything. I just want to be able to teach and do shows. And like, I'm in Niagara Falls right now working with Piff, and we're going to do a bunch of shows at a Fallsview casino. And, they're treating us great, and the money's pretty good. And a lot of gigs, the money isn't this good. And I take those gigs too, if they're fun. If I think that I'll have a good time and I can work on things that I like, let's go. As long as I am not a burden to anyone in terms of financially, I'm not driven by any sort of idea of like wealth or status, or like, I'm just driven by like my joy
and freedom.
You cannot put a price on it.
But yeah, you made a very good point there. I find that quite annoying like with comedy clubs, a lot of times people they're waiting to get spots by certain promoters and for them to accept them. But why don't you just put on your own show, spend all that and actually do the work and get the stage time? Waiting for someone to accept you, as you said, with screenwriting meetings and all of that, that takes ages. You could actually be doing the actual work and performing or doing something rather than...
Yeah. And, I kind of first started realizing that when I started doing clown, I was still a screenwriter, and I'd had a history of doing improv and screenwriting. Like the improv, obviously, just for the joy of it. There's no real money in it. So I would write during the day, but I was pretty dissatisfied with that process. Like I was really
grateful to be creative for a living, and actually writing the scripts was a lot of fun, right? Before you had to have your meetings and deal with your notes and etc. And so I would go do improv shows at night where I get to, make up anything I wanted and play with people I thought were funny. And then after my partner died, I started doing improv again, and it wasn't as fun. Not because improv had changed, because I had changed. And I was looking for something deeper. And the thing about improv is I think it's a beautiful exercise in, cooperation and generation, but it lacks that connection with the audience. Like, it lacks the idea that the show can be more than it should be, which is what I think it makes clown so great. Like, we do this very dumb show, and yet it can feel like something impactful has happened. And I discover clown, and I start, I'm still screenwriting, and I'm still doing clown. And my first foray into clown, like where I sort of established my name, was this duo called Jetso. It was me and a Japanese guy named Juzo Yoshida, a Japanese national. And we were both starting to take clown classes, and Juzo is a very natural clown too. He's just an absolute wrecking ball. Like, he will sell out a scene in a heartbeat. Like, he will do whatever he has to for a laugh. He never literally thinks a second past getting a laugh, like in a way that is very impressive in some, like, if you know anything about clown, like, because we can't help but like sort of think about like, oh, well, we're like, he was just like, I don't care. I think I can get a laugh on saying this thing. And he would. And then, but in improv, while he was often the funniest person on his team and like this and that, like, cause we went through IO together, he kept getting kicked off all his teams because he would destroy all the scenes. Like, and in a way I understand, because like, that's not the contract of an improv show. It's like, the contract is we're all going to work together, but I'm watching this guy going, that's the funniest guy in the show. Like, hands down. How do I work with that guy? And how do we sustain doing 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, when all he wants is immediate validation, right? And so we formed this duo, and I start going through this process of figuring it out, but stage time was limited, and in the early days, a lot of the theaters we were too different and weird because we were using clown, even though we were improvising. And so I just started running all my own shows, and I ran a bunch of shows, and I would, book 4 other groups, and hopefully they would tell some of their friends, etc. And then over time doing that, then places like Second City, Hollywood, and West Side Comedy, and places that were established, they were like, oh, well, why don't you do a show here? Because we had done that work and we had created something interesting, right? So like, that's a much better way to get attention. I'll say this too. There are people who don't need to do any of this, right, Marv? Like, let's be honest. Sometimes you see a shooting star and you're like, this person, they've got the look. They fit right into the box. And I don't mean that as an insult. I mean, it's just like the look, the pattern, like that person, you don't have to do any of this. Like, you're going to be the person who gets accepted by the promoter and the producer. But if your life hasn't reaped those kind of benefits up to this point, you're not that person, right? Yeah. Like there are people who will be in like an improv class, and they'll say stuff like, I think I'm really funny, and I think I'm really funny, and this and that. And sometimes I want to say, like, so people would describe you as funny? Like, right, like, because like, I know I've been funny forever. Like, I was making people laugh in the 3rd grade. Like, I've just, like, the thing about clown that's so wonderful, and the reason I bring this up is actually that's true in clown, not stand up and improv usually. But like, you just manage to excavate away some of the things holding a person back, and you finally see this sort of interiority, like this life they've built inside of themselves. And you're like, that's funny. Like, but stand up and improv, they don't support that. Like, you have to kind of be funny a different way, like a way that you've been kind of doing it your whole life. This is just my opinion. But in clown, my most exciting finds in clown are someone who has been really quiet and probably as a kid was just making up little plays in their bedroom. And then you're like, what if you show us the play you made in your bedroom? Kind of, you know what I'm talking about? And then you see it and you're like, oh my God, that's so weird. You're so weird. Like in the best possible way. And boom, now you've got someone who has something completely unique to offer.
Yeah.
But I honestly don't think that happens. And maybe your viewers will disagree. I don't think that happens in stand-up, especially. I think the people who kind of are on a fast track have kind of probably known they've been fun. Like they have been popular and funny and good navigating social situations most of their life.
That some of them, what you said there's half true. Some comedians are like that, but some of them are awkward as fuck. And like what they're on stage, they're hilarious and confident, but off stage, you talk to them, and well, then there's the other one that's probably hooked on drugs and a bit insecure, but
they're cool.
They're
like, here's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that they're the funniest at all. I'm saying that like if you want to get passed at the Comedy Store, and like your goal is, I'm going to get passed at the Comedy Store, someone who is more of a fastball has a better chance than an oddball. And if you're an oddball, go do your own thing. Go work the East Side shows in LA. Like put up your own show that is a reflection of your weird little bedroom play, right? But if you're like, I can remember there was a guy named Echo Kellum who's like TV star now. Okay. And when I was in improv, he was just starting in improv. Super handsome, over 6 feet tall, charisma to spare, very naturally funny. This guy doesn't have to start his own show. That's all I'm saying. Like this guy, the system is going to be like, you check every box. But, you know, maybe if you're like a James Acaster in the earliest days, like he needs to make sure that he's not trying to be what the club wants and that he's going out and finding ways to be James Acaster, right? Like he needs to make his own opportunities and stuff like, because otherwise he ends up trying to be something the club wants when what he is already so funny. And I think that you kind of know if you're someone who kind of is that chameleon that just fits right down the middle, like a fastball. And those people I don't think have to like start their own open mic, or I don't think they do. Like, but that is such a stark minority of people. And like the best comedy, I'm agreeing with you. It's the weirdos. It's the people like, but those weirdos would be best served like making sure that wherever they're doing their comedy, they have no restriction. And that often means creating their own shows. So maybe I wasn't clear in what I was saying.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100% on that. And but it's a bit what we've been saying before though. But I think the thing is, when there's a story there though, that's interesting to hear. Like when you hear about a lot of great biopics, you hear about these ups and downs. You see about, damn dog, that shit will never work. And then he goes in at the end and he makes it, like Will Smith and his son in the Pursuit of Happiness. Mm-hmm. No one believed him. His wife left him. He went and proved everyone wrong. And I think he won them over by making a joke about him having paint on his pants. Something, I don't know, I can't remember, but it was a very but that's what you want to hear about. You want to hear about the uniqueness or someone struggling and having to forge their own thing. I mean, bloody Van Gogh, he never got to live out his success. But
never got to see it.
Yeah.
That's something you should probably say to anyone on their deathbed. Right. Right. That's a good thing to say. Like when right before someone's about to pass, you're like, hey, I think this is a Van Gogh situation. So just know things are going to pick up as soon as you let go, things are going to pick up really well for you.
Yes. Oh God. Maybe someone did.
Yeah. Who knows?
Now, for anyone that's listening right now, Chad, listen to the episodes, and they want to find out about you, watch a show, go to a workshop, listen to podcasts, how do they do that?
Well, my main social media outlet is Instagram. I am the Chad Damiani, so my name with the in front of it. And I have a link tree, also chad.damiani. I'm currently teaching mostly in Los Angeles, but I plan to hit the road again in the second half of the year. I did a lot of traveling in 2025, so I do come different places to teach and do shows. Uh, I am an infiltrator, so if you're someone who's at a comedy club or an improv club or a sketch theater, like these are places that I often will travel to. Reach out to me. Sometimes there's some interesting possibility there. I book a lot of my own stuff. Stand Up and Clown is my podcast. You can find it on Spotify and Apple. It's mostly solo pods currently because they're the easiest for me to record on the road. But I talk a lot about technique and the nature of the work. So if you're an incredibly nerdy comedy person or a big clown aficionado, that this is probably in your lane. Otherwise, I don't know. Like this, I would say is more accessible. Marv's podcast, and yeah. Lastly, my show Stand Up and Clown will be at San Francisco Sketch Fest at the end of January. I don't know when this is coming out. And then I have my 4-year anniversary for Stand Up and Clown at the end of February at the Elysian. And then we're going to be at the Netflix is a Joke Festival in May.
Oh,
so yeah, just check me out on Instagram. I'm posting endlessly, promoting myself shamelessly. You will not miss anything.
all right. Well, guys, if you want to know about Chad, who's the Chad of clowning, you know where to go.
Isn't this it? Right?
Yeah, just do that. See, just how could you not follow that lovely beard and stroke? Come on, guys. And also, yeah, we got the lovely Chad. We got Peter Jones, who's a friend of mine, who's done the Australian and London circuit. And we got a guy who's got a very interesting story, Dane Baptiste. So he basically conquered the UK comedy scene, but for a moment of anger on social media, where he said something that was a bit off kilt, he got cancelled from the UK scene. He lost his agent, lost all sorts of work, but now he's making recovery. And I think that's something that could happen to a lot of people. If you say or do the wrong thing, you could get cancelled. And it's going to be really interested in his story. But yeah, hope you've enjoyed the episode. See you guys soon. Make sure you follow Chad. Give him some money for his shows, go to his workshops, and make sure you subscribe to the podcast and give it a 5-star review on Amazon iTunes.